Okay, well, welcome all you fabulous people out there in Interspace and to my two students here today for virtual interviewing tips in a virtual world. So I'm going to share my screen with you now and introduce myself. My name is Meg Underwood. I am the Director of Professional Development Outreach in the Doermer School of Business. And I am here today with Onna Hill. Onna, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yep, so I'm Onna Hill, the Director of Talent Strategy with Northwestern Mutual, and I head up all the growth in our office while spending the majority of my time in our internship program.
Thank you. Okay, so Faith reached out to me because she is interested, she thought students would be interested in virtual interviews. That is something very popular right now, and the truth is it will stay popular. So today we're going to talk about like, why do we do virtual interviews? What are they? How long will they happen in the future? Do's and don'ts. And instead of practice makes perfect, I like to say practice makes prepared because I don't believe in perfect. Like my previous slide, I just saw a typo there. So virtual interview, what does that mean? How will it happen? What formalities? Will this go away? And Onna, please just interrupt me and let's just tag team this.
Yeah.
So when you reach out to somebody for a virtual interview, what does that mean for you, Onna?
Yeah, so virtual interview means really no different than a face-to-face interview. It's just giving us the ability and sometimes the flexibility to be able to actually conduct an interview. We have found in the past year that we've actually been able to do more because in the situation we're in sometimes at hand with COVID and just different people's situations, that we're actually able to do more because people are more flexible with their time, not having to drive to the office and then get back to class or whatever the case may be. So really, to me, a virtual interview is no different than if you were walking into the professional atmosphere of the business to do an actual interview.
Yeah. I like they say like it's happening, it's more flexible. I think this is giving people the positive of even more chances to interview with somebody in North Carolina, interview with somebody in California, or interview across town, and you don't have to plan your whole day around it. And how do I get there? And what do I do? I mean, you still need to prepare, but there's a little bit less. It's actually, it has been a growing trend, especially since 2011, that interviews have been on the rise more than 50%, and 6 in 10 people are doing are starting with virtual interviews at first because you can choose a time that makes sense. They don't have to travel. They can still get face-to-face online. And it's just the convenience of it. You know, you can go from meeting to meeting. It used to be when we would interview somebody on campus that we would plan the whole day around it. We would take them out to lunch. We would do like a campus tour and all these different things. And while those things were fun, when you're interviewing 5-10 people, it just took up a lot of time. So we're missing out on some of that time interacting with them and getting to know them over lunch or something like that. But instead, we're saving so much time with interviews. And budgets are being cut. Physical offices are being cut. I know I have like 3 friends who will never go back to work at their current job, that their company chose to no longer pay the rent. And so you better believe those companies are going to be doing virtual interviews. I reached out to Onna for 2 reasons. 1, because she's awesome and she wanted to help us. And 2, she actually doesn't even live full-time in Indiana. So I thought she would be able to handle virtual interviews because she recruits in Indiana, but lives across the country. So I think she has a lot of experience in that area.
Yep.
So here's just an article I read about trends in 2021. And these are overall recruiting trends and global recruiting trends. Like there was a lot of facts about London for some reason. I guess this place is the global recruiters from London. But I just thought some of these things were interesting. What's really sticking out to you, Onna, that you think is true, especially in Indiana?
I think the biggest thing on here that it is to stay. I think now that people have mastered it and learned it, it won't go away. It made my job a lot easier because, like you said, I was already trying to master that out in Colorado, knowing that my job was here in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah.
So I think that virtual interviews are here to stay. That's probably the biggest one on here. And then the flexibility, like you said, it just gives people the ability to broaden their job search. And where you may not have thought about interviewing with somebody in California, you might now be more apt to be able to do that because, frankly, I'd say 5 years ago, you'd fly to California for that interview and pay for it, things of that nature. So I think it's really opened up a lot in that realm. So those are probably the two that really stick out to me the most. And you are correct on social media hiring. We've even started to work on a virtual tour of our office. So we're things that we would normally do in an interview. We're trying to figure out how do we do a virtual tour of that. And I really do think it is the new way in the new path.
I went on a home tour this weekend with a robot, so you can try that.
Yep.
It was like Rover was like walking around with me. It was cool and creepy. Something that stuck out to me when I was reading this, because I was looking for information and facts and figures about virtual interviewing, but I think this is a broader picture of virtual recruiting. I mean, if we're doing virtual interviewing because it's COVID, but like the whole process now could be all virtual, including your actual job once you're done. A lot of people are doing freelancing now. Something that kind of surprised me, but actually I think Northwestern Mutual has been doing this for a while, is psychometric testing. Since you can't physically meet that person and spend all day with them, they're looking for other ways to get to know people. And so a lot of companies might ask you to do some type of personality test, or Northwestern Mutual has developed their own test that I can let Onna tell you a little bit more about.
Yeah, so we have a culture index survey that you're right. It was developed exactly for us and only us. It is something that takes a candidate 5 to 7 minutes, and it is amazing what it ends up pulling out of it. It actually tells us, it's kind of scary. It actually tells us one of the questions is designed on just the mindset that you're in. So if you were a student for the day and working, it's going to pull whatever you were feeling at that time. And then the other graph that it pulls out for us is simply your true traits, which most psychologists would tell us that we develop those at age 6, age 10, somewhere in that range. And so it's a really cool tool for us because it helps us get to know the person. It's not a weed out. So it's not something that we won't hire this person because of the way these traits are, but it helps us from a coaching and development. And it's one of my favorite tools to use when I'm talking to a student or a career changer, because it can help them see a proper fit, even if it's not with us. So I call myself a connector of people and a career coach, because there are times where I help people just find something different and not just with Northwestern Mutual. So yes, there are, I think you're going to see a lot more of those because there is a lot caught. One of the points on here, more skills in demand, like problem solving, communication. There's a lot caught in that initial face-to-face interview, posture, communication skills, things of that nature. And so there, I think you're going to see more of some of that stuff of people pulling out how people are wired through those types of things. So
yeah, I think you could dig deeper faster too, probably. Like real
quick
fast
snapshot. Yeah, quick snapshot. Yep.
Yeah. So here's that stat again: 81% of people on LinkedIn said they will continue virtual recruiting in general post-COVID, and that 70% said it's the new standard. So format, I mean, it depends. Hopefully when they invite you to the interview, they would give you some information about how that's going to happen. And if they don't, then you better ask. Say in your thank you note, or if you forget, it's okay to ask later. You can call the main line and ask to speak to the hiring manager's admin assistant, or email them directly. Make sure you do this plenty of time ahead. The interview is on Wednesday, the previous Friday. You should be asking these questions, so you would give them time to respond to you. You wouldn't ask half an hour before the interview. For example, if it's Zoom or something you haven't used before, then you want to make sure that you get it downloaded, that you practice it, that you set your username to something appropriate, that maybe even you have a background that's pretty cool. Onna was telling me that they use, what's it called again?
Ring Central.
Ring Central. And she said that now they're in the habit of telling people ahead of time to download it, because in the past people just click the link and then you have to download it and test it on the right computer that you're going to use, because it could be that your work computer or your school computer blocks some type of website. You want to use the web app, but then the web app isn't working with your phone and this, and then I would say even have a backup plan from there as well. So common questions are the same questions you might be asked in an actual interview. I can't think of how something would be different virtually. I think like if they're trying to be fun, maybe they would say like show and tell from your desk or something, but I don't think people really do that. They wouldn't tell you show and tell from your bag. It's more of my virtual baby showers I've been to. So these are just some questions that you might think about, and you can find a lot of these questions in the career guide, and that's on the Handshake profile or in the mock interview website. I'm going to show you later. Okay, simple do's and don'ts. Do test ahead of time. I already talked about this. And don't forget a backup plan. My dad was interviewing for a job a couple weeks ago, and we tested Teams and we tested Zoom, and then we tested this, and then we tested on my mom's computer too, because he was so nervous that it wasn't going to work at the right time. And it was good we did, because we used 3 different computers to make Teams work, and it still wasn't perfect, but he just dealt with it. And I was even there with him in person a week later trying to figure it out. And yeah, I'm really glad that my dad wasn't dealing with that like the day of the interview, because that would have really stressed him out. He figured it out way ahead of time, and even had a backup plan with a phone or something like that. So do definitely test it ahead of time. If you want to test it with me, I'd be happy to do that with you, or just get a friend to join. Also think about like your actual classes right now. Do practice talking to a crowd. You know, it could be, especially because they're virtual, they don't have to coordinate as many people's all-day schedules or travel schedules to get everybody in the room. So you might be interviewing with a big group of people. So if it helps, don't get overwhelmed. You know, just look at one person. I like to take a secret screenshot of the whole group so I can write down names or see their names and faces later, so I can follow up with them, and I can write down as they introduce themselves, I can quickly like write down their name and their title so I can try to find them later. Anna, do you have any tips about talking to a crowd during an interview?
No, just be prepared for it. We do try to bring in panel of people still. Again, it's really no different than our regular face-to-face interview. We're still going to bring leadership in, 1 or 2 people. Most people put their names on there now, so that is a good catch, Meg, of just, you know, hey, keeping track of who you're talking to. And you can always ask that stuff ahead of time still too. There shouldn't be a recruiter out there that's like, you know, if you ask a question, that should really shy away from answering the question. If they do, it's probably not a company you would want to work for. So
right. And why wouldn't they tell you who'd be in the interview? That's
right. Yeah. So
okay, so here's
that is a new norm. Sorry. No, that is a new norm of just multiple people in the interview, because they can't do it in-house. So
yeah, and they're not gonna go like person to person to person. They're just gonna have everybody there. Okay, here's my favorite one. Do dress professionally, like for real. It's an interview. You want to put yourself in the mindset. Look at these 2 different people. Other than his bottoms, that's also a don't. So let's break down these pictures, what we're seeing here. This gentleman has nice hair, his trimmed beard, a professional looking shirt on. I would say if it's an interview, he should probably have a jacket or a tie as well. It's very tempting during COVID or during these virtual interviews to not wear professional clothes on the bottom, but I've definitely seen people like stand up and there's inappropriate clothes underneath. Imagine like you just forget and you drop something, or you just like have an itch or something, or you really like, you can't you can see what they can see, but like, what if you're not noticing some small details or a reflection of a mirror right here in the background or something? So, and it's also, it's a psychological thing. It's mindset. This probably professor woman sitting on her bed in her pajamas, doing an interview while she's engaged, her hands are up, she's talking, she's adamant, she's passionate. She can't really be 100% in the right mindset for an interview. I would highly recommend not doing any interview from your bed. People can tell in the background that that's your bed. And they can tell, and you have a messy room behind you. Or I was talking to a student a couple days ago, and she just like there was such a mess behind her. I was just like staring at that mess instead of her. It's really distracting. Have you had any crazy clothing stories or background stories, Anna?
We are seeing just a lack of professionalism. So like I have a suit jacket on because I'm in the presence of a professional setting. So, and I have my dress pants on. And so I don't have just leggings on because I know I'm sitting here and you guys probably can't see that. So, so I'll reiterate two things. One, yeah, I've had people show up with a ball cap on, like it's still a professional interview. And I always give that feedback to students like, hey, next time you better have a shirt and tie on or a nice dress shirt. I don't know about a blazer. Or a suit jacket. You can always, again, that's a simple question you could ask like, hey, should I wear a suit jacket to this interview? And I'll tell you, not the first one, but if I'm putting you in front of my managing director, want you to shine, right? And I will agree with Meg on the mindset. That's actually my word for 2021. There's just something about putting on a suit jacket and showing up because you want to be virtual is so much harder because you aren't forced to be in that best position possibly as we were face to face. So I would say try not to just be more lax just because it's virtual, because I'm still looking for professionalism and most companies are.
Right. And think about it. They're going to be hiring you and you're going to be doing something virtual. So they want to see that you can handle professionalism working with their clients and working with their coworkers.
Yeah, I've not had anybody stand up and have that situation, but I know they're not just memes out there. There's reality of stuff that's actually happened. And I just can't seem to fathom why somebody would do that. So
the best thing that happened to me was somebody, I think they thought their camera was off during a meeting and they were just like clicking through on a TV, like clearly had the remote at the TV. It's just like, okay, look, we can see. It was early in the pandemic.
I know people probably feel like you can't, but I can tell when somebody's texting on their phone because you're not engaged. You don't realize like you're looking down or you've got your phone like I could have my phone right here and you may not know it in texting, but then I start to look down. Like I can tell when somebody is not engaged and doing that. So keep that stuff just clear, make sure ringers are off. But yeah, presence is still wanted and needed, especially because at Northwestern Mutual, we do financial advising. So you're going to wear a shirt and tie or a suit jacket or a skirt and nice dress pants with a blazer when you come into the office. So we expect that in the interview process too. So
yeah, good point. Okay, so I don't like what he's wearing or his like beard and stuff, but I think it is a really good show of how the camera move can really change. So if I were to turn off my camera and put my laptop just on the table here. I mean, look how different if I'm like sitting on top of the camera. It just feels a little bit different, right? And it looks darker. And if I could show you my background right now, it's messy and it's confusing and it's just not great. So all I did, I watched a LinkedIn video about how to look professional on Zoom. And it was like, put your laptop on a couple of books. And I was like, oh, well, that does look better. So you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit and play with your lighting, close the drapes behind you or open them up if they're in front of you or kind of look around and see. And if you don't have a great background in your house, then I would recommend some type of professional background behind you. If you'd like one, I'd be happy to provide one. This is the Doermer School of Business building, or we have a couple of PFW ones. I've actually seen a couple people use a background of the company they're interviewing for. Like when people would interview for PFW and they have a Purdue Fort Wayne background, it's not that hard. Google image the company and like find their place of business or find their logo. I mean, that 30 seconds would be like, ah, cool. And then they're talking to you for what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And the whole time they're seeing your face next to their company. So it's a really good kind of mind trick of like, I'm already a part of you, just hire me. Any other tips with like visual?
Yeah, so yeah, just make sure you have a decent background. I'm at my parents' house right now because I am in Indiana. So normally I would do these from the office, but I sometimes just a simple lamp next to it gives some additional light. There's the little selfie lights that clip
the
on
glow light or
to,
something.
yeah, low light. But yeah, just be aware of what's in your background. It's okay to have family pictures or a flag hanging up of something that I love that kind of stuff when people represent like a fraternity they're in or a sport they're in or something that they're proud of. But yeah, just be cautious of what's behind you. We just did had our director of business operations do a virtual consult, and I had to get a laptop stand. So out in Colorado, the way my room was and the lighting in that room, I have a laptop stand that's there for every interview I do. And then about 2 feet away from the screen, if you've noticed, like, I know I've moved a couple of times, but I'm at a pretty good distance from my screen. It's about 2 feet away from the video. And sometimes it's just a matter of your tilt to it, whatever the case may be. So, yep.
So move the camera around, and I would also like look at the difference between this in an interview, you know, and like on my edge of my seat and I'm engaged and I'm interacting, you know, practice like actually like record yourself when I look at the camera, when I look down at the screen, when I'm looking at the keyboard, like people can tell where you're looking and they only have this small little box. So those types of things matter. If you're the type of person that talks with your hands, you're gonna have to start talking with your hands up here a little bit more. I'll say this again later, but we do have a remote interview room now in the Doermer School Business in the new building. We're mostly virtual for one-on-one appointments, but the campus is open. You can go in the buildings and you can come in our new building, and I have a room just for you to reserve for remote interviews if you need a quiet place. And the internet is fabulous because there's very few people using it. So it's very good Wi-Fi. Do, adapt, and problem solve. That's what companies are looking for. We saw that on the trends. They're looking for people who can problem solve, who can adapt, who can make things work. You know, if you have to sit in your closet with a flag behind you instead of in your bedroom because that's what would work, then just, you know, it's okay to make it work. And I've talked to so many students or so many people where their kids come in the room, or the dog comes in the room, or things like that. If you can, you know, apologize ahead of time or just tell them like, I'm sorry, my kid's home today. This is what's happening, but I'm going to make it work. I'm engaged. I'm interested. The more you freak out and spiral and I'm so sorry, or be quiet. Like you're showing them that you're not, it's not going well under pressure, you know, like, so just apologize once and try to move on. And like this gentleman in this picture with his daughter on top of his shoulders. I mean, that wouldn't be great for an interview, but you just got to roll with it and just say, I'm sorry, here's my 2-year-old, but I do have daycare normally and this won't happen again.
I think companies are a lot more understanding with COVID situations now. And so as we're like our office, we just offer now, like, do you want face-to-face or virtual? Because we still want to be cognizant of people and what they are deciding on in that situation. We aren't going to judge if people don't want to do face-to-face, even though we've got sneeze guards and mask and all of that. And we sanitize per guidelines. We get that people still don't want to, and they have to adapt to what they have at home. And so it is definitely okay. Like I said earlier, my Great Dane just gets annoyed when I don't pay attention to him all day when I'm working in Colorado. And so he likes to be my coworker. And so sometimes I just show him off and like, cause I'm human too. Right. And I rather get down to that level with a candidate that we're all human. It happens. It's okay.
Right.
Like I said, just sometimes you can level set the stage with, I apologize, I'm home today because I'm in a virtual world and I have a dog in the background. He may bark.
Right. And move on.
Yep.
But yeah, and I like that, like, we're all human. Like, if you're the person interviewing you, their dog barks in the background, and you say, like, oh, don't worry about it, or their kid comes in, like, would you give them grace? Would you give them flexibility? So would you expect them the other way around? And if they don't, if they're unreasonable, do you want in an interview, do you want to work for them?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some simple do's and don'ts, and now here's how to prepare. So what do I actually do? How can I build up my strengths? What can I do today? What can I do maybe a month from now? And what can I do like a couple of days before the interview? So first of all, understand yourself and understand body language and how things are coming across. So I like this little graphic about how communication is conveyed, that only 7% of what we say is the actual words. 55% is the face, and that's what we're doing in virtual interviews. And then 38% is tone of voice. So we really want to make sure we're heard and we can hear them. And then what we're saying is also next. So I like this too, the tips here. So make sure it's framing your face, set the scene, don't fidget. Sometimes I have a lot of little things here on my desk that if I'm a fidgeter, like I've got a little hair tie here. Sometimes when I'm in a meeting and I need busy hands, that's something that's not that distracting or loud or make noises. I'll have a stress ball on my desk, just something to look at. But often what I have is a pen and I'm just taking notes, and whether I need to write it down or not, I do. Because one, it makes me look a lot more engaged and a lot more interested in what they're saying. And that's what you should have in an interview anyways. Or any type of meeting you're in, that just is polite to write down what people say. It just is kind that what your words matter to me. So yeah, kind of like figure out your whole situation, get dressed, figure out the tech, have a backup plan, and just set yourself up well to be a good communicator. And I would highly encourage you to practice and to get some feedback. So Faith, I didn't tell you ahead of time, but I'm going to call you out. Faith is well lit. She's got nice hair on. I can see she's like in a good frame of the camera there. I can see a couple things in the background, but it's clean. I can, like, this is where she lives, and that's fine. That's her room. There's no clean wall behind her, nothing crazy distracting. So I think she's on it for the virtual interviews. I think she's ready.
Yeah, I would agree.
Also practice. It's an interview. You should always be practicing. You don't want to be write down every word you're going to say because you don't want to come off as rote. And that can be more tempting in a virtual world because you might have it, like you might have more of an ability to have like hidden notes in front of you or something. So don't write out every word, but you do most definitely want to practice, and you want to practice the technology and practice virtual interviewing in general. So I would highly, highly recommend Big Interview. It's biginterview.com, or you can find it on the Go PFW Career Development tab. You can create a free account with your PFW ID, and you can just practice on your own. You can practice, record, and send to somebody else, send to a friend, send to a professor, send to your daddy. You can send it to me for passport points, and we can talk about it, or just kind of debrief it together. So, and tons of variety there. You can say like accounting internship and questions that would go with that, or data analyst and questions that would go with that. There's a fun thing called interview roulette, and this random questions will pop up, and here we go. So it's you're recording yourself. It's a very, very good practice for how you're coming off on screen. Am I sounding clear? Can I be heard? How does my background look? So I would definitely recommend that you all do that.
And I would say for Faith and Olivia, since you showed up tonight, I would be more than happy to give you any of my time. So Meg can definitely connect you with me. And I could totally do a consult with you. I could go through a resume or actually practice an interview with you as well, if you like. So I will offer that up to the two of you.
Faith, Olivia, say yes. So I will email you her email address so you have it, and I highly encourage you to reach out. Sometimes I email her random questions. What about this? Do you like this? Okay, number 3, prepare for each level of recruitment at the digital level. So number 1, you need a voicemail set up, and you need to check your voicemail, and you need to have it full, and it needs to be your name, because if people are calling you to set up an interview and it just says voicemail full, they might try one more time, but if they can't get a hold of you, maybe they'll email, maybe they won't. They'll move on to the next candidate. And I cannot tell you how many people I talk to where their voicemail is full, and it's very frustrating. So you don't want to be in that situation. Check your email every day. Well, that's not first. First is starting to get involved in social media, following the companies that you're interested in. On LinkedIn especially, but also Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you're on. Especially if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be, but you might see jobs pop up. And the same is true with the Purdue Fort Wayne Career Development Center, with Doermer School of Business, with me, Meg Underwood. I'm like, yesterday I was going through jobs and I saw a really cool one at Zimmer, and I was like, ooh, that sounds fun. Let me just post that on LinkedIn real quick. And, I'm not going to like email every student every job ever, but if someone happens to see it on LinkedIn and they think that looks cool, awesome. And, it's not my job to do recruitment for them. I just thought it looked neat. So you never know what might pop up that's out there, but especially the companies you're really interested in. If Northwestern Mutual posts their virtual tour of their office, and then in an interview or a cover letter, you can say, oh, I love that you had that open area where people could have lunch together. That's something I really love, is open collaboration. Or, hello, you're so engaged and you're so interested and you're actively involved and you're commenting. And yeah, there's no wrong, I think. Well, there's a lot that can go wrong with social media, but I would highly encourage you that each level of recruitment is going to be digital now. Nobody's going to want your paper form of your resume. You're not turning in a written application anywhere. It's all digital.
And right now on LinkedIn, well, one, I highly suggest LinkedIn page. Same thing. If you call me and you'd like help with setting that up, I'd be more than happy to. LinkedIn is #hiring, #open to work. And so that's connecting employers with where I can actually go in the search bar and put in #open to work, Fort Wayne area sales and marketing. And it'll actually pull up people that are looking for jobs. And then I have #hiring on my profile. Feel free to connect with me if you like. But I have #hiring. And so people know we're always looking, and it actually allows me to have a post. So I post about the internship, and Melanie posts about the full-time role. And we've actually got somebody in process right now, going through the candidate selection process through that. So everything's moving that way. It's going, like she said, it's going to get away from, I don't even know when the last time anybody filled out a paper application.
I don't know, but
yeah, but everybody is going that way, and there's movements like that on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional business networking site. And I can't tell you how useful it's been to me to find students, or that, like I said, that #open to work is awesome, because then I know people are actually looking.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's helpful. Has anybody reached out to you on social media in an especially helpful way, or you were impressed by a student?
Yeah, so there's a couple times where, like, I don't know if you guys are football fans, but Sarah, cannot remember her last name for the life of me, was the first female referee for the NFL, and she was the first female to ref the Super Bowl last night, and so she made history. She actually was one of our speakers at Central Regional last year.
Oh, cool.
So we got to hear from her in her journey, and I'll tell you, super powerful woman to listen to. But I post things like that to showcase to people, like, it's not just about work all the time, the additional education that we learn. And I do have students or career changers who are like, you just look like you're always having fun. Can you tell me more? Or it looks like it's just a really awesome culture there. Tell me more about it. So it is a way for, especially LinkedIn again, it's a way for us to communicate like, hey, we do more than just do financial advising for our clients. Or from a career changer standpoint, we actually don't have anybody from the industry. They're all actually out of a career that you would never think would be doing this. And when somebody
Mm.
hears that, they're like, wow. So we tell stories, we talk about our culture because we want people to see what we're about and who we are. And most good companies that are top companies to work for are doing that on social media and showcasing that. So I do have people that connect with me and reach out and just say, hey, I saw this. Can you tell me more about what it is you guys do?
Nice. And then last, or not last, almost last, I would highly recommend jobscan.co. A lot of part of virtual recruiting now is resume scanners or some type of AI involved in the recruiting process. And even when it's not like a computer doing a resume scan, often the first round of resume reviews, a recruiter could be spending 5 seconds, 10 seconds on your resume just to like, do they have a 3.0 GPA or not? Are they accounting major or not? Are they some type of business major? Do they have communication skills? Have they ever had a job? Have they had a relevant job? They're just like really quickly going through. And imagine 150 applicants for one position, they're looking for reasons to cut you. So if you don't say that you have Excel skills when the job description clearly says must have Excel skills, then they might not even keep reading. They might not move on. And as silly as it sounds, with a resume scanner, let's pretend you put Microsoft Office and not Microsoft Excel explicitly because the job description says that. If it's a resume scanner computer, it can't figure that out. So, probably can. It knows everything about me, but might not be programmed to figure it out. So it's really important that you're following what they say to do. And I actually did this for myself recently. You can put in your job description and your resume, and you can see how well they match. So I did this for my current job, the job I just got a year and a half ago. I put in my resume and the job description to see what it would be, and I was not a very high match. So I'm very glad that they knew me and my networking skills were up. And they thought, oh, Meg, maybe she'd be good for this job. Because I think if it was like a cold application, if they had no idea who Meg Underwood was, I'm not sure I would have got an interview. And I definitely wouldn't get a job if I didn't have the interview. So something to look at and very good practice to keep in. It's free. It looks like if you create an account, it'll tell you a little bit more information because that's how it goes. But don't pay for anything. It should be free for PFW students. It's on the career development tab, or just look at the free information. Do you use any kind of resume scanner or anything like that?
The only thing we have is we have somebody monitoring all of our online, but it's not an AI or resume. It's a person.
Okay.
And the only thing they're trying to look at is the local. So like a Purdue Fort Wayne student that's near Fort Wayne, because even though we can introduce them to another office, we want resumes for that area. And then I think certain level of degree. I will say, like to Meg's point, is really do look at what the qualifications are. It amazes me sometimes when people apply and it's like, but I put these 3 things on here and now I have to go back and say no. Like I hate hitting the button that's like, it professionally sends you an email back, but it's literally saying, sorry, you can't work here because there are specific qualifications. For instance, for international students, they have to have a visa, but they can't require a sponsorship. Well, I have not yet to meet a international student that doesn't require a sponsorship upon graduating. And simply put, it's not even Northwestern Mutual, it's our FINRA investment security licensing nationwide that won't allow that contract to go through. So at the end of the day, there's certain things that are put on there because the company is just going to, whether it's a resume scanner, it scares me with AI and resume scanner because you could get kicked out even more if you don't have it right. So she brings a good point, but I'm still just scanning through a resume and looking for those bullet points. And a lot of times students ask me, well, how do I make it if I have too long of a resume? You don't need 10 years in every certificate you've ever gotten. And a cover letter. Meg mentioned that just a little bit ago. A cover letter is perfect to give me a highlight overview. People just don't seem to do them anymore. And it still
Really?
is something I want to see. Yeah, I just don't see them very often.
I would I would say it's required. Whether they say it's required or not, I would encourage my students to write a cover letter. And
Yep.
if there's only one spot for an application, then put your cover letter and your resume together in one document and upload that one document.
Yep. And then
Obviously,
a lot of times, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm saying like you have to do what's required, but I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's gonna look at a cover letter and be like, pish posh,
Right.
throw that away.
And then some students will like, well, I haven't done much. Put your volunteer activities, put other things that you're involved in, because maybe you haven't got to work as much because you're pulling a double major or you're an athlete or whatever the case may be. So there's ways around some of that, but yeah, be sure you know exactly what the company says their qualifications are. It's just a waste of your time if you don't.
Yeah. Would you encourage someone to apply if they don't meet every qualification? Like, where would your
I would probably say it depends on the qualification. So like for the work visa sponsorship, like that's just a hard no. But just because I put that I want somebody with a 3.0 doesn't mean that somebody with a 2.8 still can't do the job. So I'd say something like maybe 2 out of 3 check the box, or 3 out of 5 check the box. Just be prepared to explain. And you probably need to have a stellar resume to bypass that as well. So
that makes sense. Or maybe in the cover letter, talk about change of major, or kind of add a GPA explanator or something. How you
there's
work.
times where we've seen, why did that person have 6 months of no work while I was on maternity leave, or I had a kid, or I'm military and I got called back for something. We just don't know that if you don't put that somewhere. And that's like you said, if I'm looking through 150 resumes for one role, I'm pushing those off to the side because I'm like, well, they job jump or they have this or whatever the case may be. You just don't want to lose the opportunity before it comes. So.
Yeah, makes sense. Next tip to prepare is, it's still an interview. A lot of the stuff we've talked about, but want to drive it home. Research the position, research the company, research the job. Don't ask them any questions that's in their job description. Ask beyond that. So I see that part of this job will be working with clients. Is that something that I would do day one, that I would do some training in first? Would I go on my own? Would I go with a team? Like try to get more in depth in your questions first. And several companies have told me that one of the questions I always ask is, why this company? If you can't answer that, then like a lot of times it's like, oh, I just want a job. But like, you can't say that in an interview, but clearly you chose something about them. And professional attire, if you need help, you can use the Master Drum Career Closet. You can borrow clothes for a professional interview. Practice common questions, especially scenario questions. These are very common. Like, tell me about a time you overcame a difficult situation. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a coworker or a teammate that didn't go well. Tell me about a time that you had to analyze a situation and come up with a couple of different options for a solution. So think of, especially, you can't predict the exact question, but you could think of a few examples where you really shine, and especially different traits that you have. So like Faith and I were talking about, I think I'm someone who's very friendly, and I always go above and beyond, and I look for problems and I try to solve them, and I want to make sure people have a good experience at Purdue Fort Wayne. And so all of those questions, I can think of one story, how I always go out of my way to help people find the right building. And a couple times people have just been so thankful, and it's been parent with their student touring, and they say, oh, nobody else has ever done this for us at another college campus. And so I just feel really good about that, and I'm really happy to represent my university in that way. And I could answer that little story about a lot of different scenario questions. So maybe in my interview, when I'm preparing, I write part-time tour guide or something as a reminder for myself of how I go above and beyond, or how I solve a problem, or how I am a team player, because I could use that sort of development.
Sometimes people just forget to simply think about the role you're going to be taking. So like when it's a sales role, you're probably going to get asked, tell me about a time you were told no.
No.
Because I want to know how you fight objections when you're trying to sell an item. So sometimes it's just taking a step back and thinking about, I'm going to go into sales. They're probably going to ask me what motivates me in a time that I've been told no. Or tell me about a time that you had in a team setting and the team wasn't getting the job done. What did you do? Because I want to see what role did you play? Did you just give up? So think about what role you're taking on and try to design like what questions you would get asked because that role that you're taking on.
Thank you. That's good. Yeah, especially for our business management majors, other majors, if you're going to be interviewing people too one day. So what questions would you ask for this particular position? That would be really good practice for you of like, what would I ask someone interviewing for this role? And don't forget, please, to write down their name so you can write them a thank you note. It's, if you forgot, you could ask the hiring manager again, like, I'm so sorry. I know somebody said Kathy, but I missed the last name. I really would like to send them a thank you note. That is not a rude thing to ask. Now, asking, can you tell me the names and emails of everybody in that room? I think I just would let that one go, but definitely send a thank you note. It does stick out. And it's, for me, you always think of those things later that I wish I would have said, or, I never got a chance to talk about being a team player, and I knew they were going to ask me about a team player, and I'm such a good team player. Then bring it up and say that in your thank you note. I really appreciate this time. We never got a chance to talk about teamwork. I saw that in the job description. I saw that on your website, and that's what attracted me to this role. I'm a big team player. Or I really learned about XYZ, or looking forward to this. You asked this question and that was hard for me to answer in the moment, but I've thought about it a lot, and here's what I would have said. I think. Do people write you thank you notes, Anna?
Very far and few, but I have every single one hanging up that I've ever gotten. So, yeah, it does mean.
No one writes you thank you notes?
It's very far and few these days. I will tell you guys, it's very. It may be a decision between two candidates. Somebody took that extra step, right? My dad I was telling him I was getting on this, and he said the president at Indiana Wesleyan had. Two people, same caliber work ethic, but the one guy had his shoes polished. And so that's the person he chose. And so sometimes it's just a matter of like, man, they're both awesome candidates. Man, I just got a thank you note in the mail that they took that extra step. And also too, maybe you're not even accepting the role. Don't ever burn your bridges. I just had that today where I've contacted the person 3 times to confirm their final conversation. I was going to extend an offer, and I hear that they took a job somewhere else and they just don't want to tell me that. Like, I hope you never plan on trying to reach out to me again, because that's so unprofessional. Just tell me you don't want the role, and that's totally fine. Now I don't know if somebody's showing up tomorrow or not, and that's an hour of my time. So thank you notes. And sometimes people say, well, what if you don't? I was a student once. What if you can't afford to go purchase a thank you note? Then an email is perfectly fine too. It shows that you took the extra step to just say thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you could ever go wrong just writing a quick email. But if you really want to go above and beyond, a handwritten note would probably be the best. Yeah. And finally, find a quiet place. We were talking about this with Olivia before we started recording. That's what she would recommend to students, and I would highly recommend that as well. You have to adapt, you have to try to problem solve, but part of problem solving is preparing, and you are more than welcome to use the Doermer School of Business space. Just send me an email and say I'd like to reserve that room for this time, and if it's available, I'd love to get you in there, and if it's not available at that time, I could probably find you a classroom in that building right now. It's pretty quiet, so you don't have to bring your own computer, but I do have a backup for you if you need it. Oh, I already gave Faith her feedback. Did it earlier. I was thinking we would do this. Faith or Olivia, do you have any questions for us?
You guys kind of talked about it, but I always wonder like where to look, because like in a real interview you like make eye contact, but like I feel like if I'm making eye contact with the person, like their video, like their little picture, then like it's gonna look like I'm like, looking somewhere else. So I don't know.
Where are you looking right now?
The camera right now.
Yeah, I can tell.
Okay.
So I've been staring at you guys off to the side, but it doesn't really look too off from me actually staring at my camera. So I think it's more the person that's constantly looking, like you actually see them looking down or off to the side. There is, I share my screen quite a bit in my interviews. So I let the student know, like, hey, I actually have a dual screen because I have one thing up here. So I bring up what I'm showing them over here. So I just say, hey, I have a dual screen when I'm sharing. So if it looks like I'm staring at the wall, I am not, I'm actually looking at this. So I just let them know. But yeah, I don't always stare right at the light or right at the screen. It's usually the people, but if I'm talking, then I try to talk right towards the screen because then I can see her mouth moving too, especially if there's like technical difficulties or anything of that nature. I've been really looking over here, but then when I talk towards the screen, and you haven't seen, I don't think you can tell much of a difference there if you have.
Yeah, I think I read like look into the camera when you're talking. So I don't know, but now I'm looking at you, Faith. Can you see any difference?
Not a huge difference, no.
So I think the point is looking at the screen and looking at the person. Something that could help you maybe is like move, make sure their picture is close to the top or something. If you have it like minimize, I don't know how you minimize what else you're looking at. But I think wouldn't stress out about that. Just look at the screen, look at the person, look at the camera when you can.
If you do have multiple people, you can click on the bars above and sometimes you can expand it over too. So there's a little, like if you hover your mouse over the edge, I've done that before. So I can actually open it up and see everybody, not because there's only 4 of us, it's in a line, but when you start to get to like 6 or 8, you don't have to keep clicking through the screens. You can actually move it over. The only thing I would say, where do you look, is if you actually have, which I don't know that people really have this anymore with the new computers, but you actually have a webcam that you're sticking up on top of your computer, then you might have to make sure that's positioned in a well-positioned area. I usually try to jump on 5 to 7 minutes before so I can actually see myself real quick, take a quick snapshot, or like Megan said, in the morning, I'll get on and just make sure I'm positioned well. I have in the office, I have our culture statement purposely behind me. I have Camp What You Want to Do, who's a community that or place in the community that we're involved in. I have all of that in the background to showcase community and our culture when I'm in the office. So
all set up.
Great question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Faith, for organizing this and hosting us. And I hope if you got nothing else out of this, that we are interested in you and want to help you. So Onna, is there any next steps with Northwestern Mutual that they might take if they're interested?
Yeah, feel free to reach out. It's just a conversation. Maybe you've never thought about doing something in this realm, but you really do learn the business owner mindset, some marketing, sales, actually kind of encompasses a lot of things. Just not something most people normally thought they would do. So we don't just bring in finance students. I've had HR, human resources, hospitality. We look for a culture fit because I can teach you everything you need to learn. I focus on soft skills, not hard skills. So somebody putting Microsoft Excel on their resume doesn't necessarily matter to me because I don't need you to know that. But check us out. Feel free to send me an email, but you can go on and read. We have it's top 10 nationally ranked college internship program. It's pretty phenomenal, but we always say it's for the right person at the right time and the right fit. So, and I'm not kidding. You'd be amazed. I offer my time to students all the time, and it amazes me how many people don't call and utilize that. So I really will take time with you if you'd like, because I appreciate your guys' time. So.
Yeah. And we're just, we love helping people. So Onna has a lot of industry experience, a lot of recruitment experience and management experience. She would be an excellent person, a third-party person. And I think both of us are going to tell you like it is. We're not going to just, we'll be kind, but we won't lie to you. Like, well, yeah, 2.1 GPA, let's bring it up. We'll work on it. How can we do that? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to end the sharing here in the show and pause the record.